Hello.
Our story begins in the halls of the Jedi Temple, where Anakin stormed away from the council chambers with his former master, Obi-Wan. The council acknowledged Anakin as a member, but not as a master within their ranks. He was appalled that they would do this to him. Obi-Wan didn't get why he was so upset. He was just short of everything he wanted. Obi-Wan knew he wanted to be a master, but he was sure once the war was over that it would be Anakin's. Of course, he didn't say this, but he thought it, so that had to count for something. Skywalker Kenobi spoke in the halls about how this was what the council wanted. They didn't trust how close Anakin was to the Chancellor. There was something out of place with everything, and Obi-Wan was doing his best to reason with the student. He wanted him to know that this was their biggest fear for him. There was something off with Palpatine, but without proof, the Jedi looked insecure in their power. That's what Anakin believed. While he may have not been wrong, he wasn't prepared for the bombshell he received afterwards. Obi-Wan informed his former student that the council was tasking him with reporting on all the Chancellor's dealings. They wanted to know what he was up to. Anakin couldn't believe his former instructor and how he would willingly agree to making him do this. Ironically, it was Obi-Wan who dissuaded the council from openly arresting the Chancellor and taking over the Senate. Kenobi thought this would be a better way to handle it, and Skywalker clearly didn't think the same about that, because he was nothing short of outraged. He told his master that he couldn't do it because it was treason. Kenobi responded telling him that they were at war. How could the Jedi otherwise secure the Republic? Anakin didn't really care. The Jedi were doing something unspeakable, and now he was being forced to partake in it. He couldn't do this. Maybe with the rank of master he could be persuaded, but not without it. Anakin just played the part of accepting the role and eventually left the temple. When he got to Padme's residence, he was visibly upset. He expressed that he was tired of the Jedi and she asked what he meant. Anakin, known for talking about his emotions openly, avoided the topic and asked her how her day was going. She thought this was weird, but noticed he was avoiding something, so decided to not press further. She instead answered his question, and they trailed off into something else. The two of them were at a crossroads. Their respective institutions betrayed them. The Jedi wanted Anakin to spy on the Chancellor, and the Republic was a shell of what it once was. Padme even started to consider that she joined the wrong side of the conflict. Instead of reacting negatively to Padme's stance, he, who was also going through a similar internal conflict, reasoned with her words. She was hopeful that the war could be resolved, knowing how close Anakin was to Palpatine, and so she prodded. And when she did, she realized what the issue was. Anakin mentioned that he was being tasked to do something he didn't want to do. She asked what it was, and he said he didn't want to get her into trouble. He was supposed to meet with Palpatine at the Opera House tonight, but he didn't really want to go. He was kind of tired of being around people in the public light. Anakin asked Padme why she thought they were on the wrong side of the war. The conversation wasn't really structured. Husband and wife weren't really able to fully understand their own emotions, let alone those of each other. She mentioned that ever since Mina Bontiri's death, she felt like something was going on behind the scenes, like behind Dooku and Palpatine. Padme said that her allies believed she was right, and they were beginning their own little alliance, but it was falling apart consistently. Her allies were threatened or attacked. It was like someone was working for Dooku or Palpatine, or they were working with each other. She tried to avoid saying anything negative about Palpatine because she wanted to have a productive conversation. Anakin kind of saw what she was saying in a way. After all, they would have never been married if it wasn't for the assassination attempts on her before the war. Perhaps there was something going on. Padme sighed and leaned back, getting tired from sitting up. She reminded Anakin of the time Palpatine sent her to the coordinates of the Malevolence for no reason, and how odd that was. Must have been a bad timing thing, but as Anakin thought about it, it didn't really make that much sense after all. Between the Ahsoka trial, Obi-Wan's fake death, the attempts on Padme's life, and the overall failure of the Republic to really handle the war, he believed perhaps they should do something. Padme tilted her head over and asked what he was thinking. He reminded her of what she said the night before, how she was thinking after the kid was born they could go back to Naboo and be safe and raise the child there. She looked at him, waiting for him to get to the point, and he said they could run away. Actually, they should run away. Padme wanted to jump up in surprise, but decided against it. She asked if that was something they should really do, and he thought so. He looked out to the horizon and said that if their orders, the Jedi and the Senate, weren't getting it together, then who were they? They were 2 people out of thousands. If they wanted to change the galaxy, they couldn't do it from ivory towers at the core of the galaxy. He grabbed her hand. He said they should do it together, away from the Jedi and away from the Republic. Anakin's smile widened as he got more excited with the idea. This was really something. They could actually go somewhere with this. Padme asked if they would go back to Naboo. Anakin's smile stopped, and his mouth hung open. He asked her how she felt about living on the hyperspace lanes. They both had a solid amount of credits thanks to the Jedi and the Republic. Why couldn't they just do that? It would give them a chance to lay low until the war came to an end. What's the worst that could happen? Padme did agree. He did have a point. Plus, if there were still assassins out, Naboo wouldn't be the place for her to go. But what about all the responsibilities? Anakin wrapped her other hand in his, and told her to forget about them. Jar Jar could represent Naboo. He did a fine job when they were away before the war. Plus, the Jedi didn't need Anakin for their secret quest. They could do it on their own. They both felt a wave of excitement rise over them. They could do this, just them, their child, and a starship traversing across the stars together. Who could ask for a better life? The euphoric thinking was semi-blinding Padme's regular thinking. But even if she wasn't so filled with energy, this wasn't a terrible idea. Why should they stay and sulk over something that clearly wasn't changing? It wasn't like they hadn't tried, right? Padme spent 3 years in the Senate, risked her life more than enough times, and still nothing came from it. Actually, come to think of it, things got worse. All the voices of reason around the galaxy were killed. Satine Kryze, Steel Guerrera, Mina Bontiri, and Anaconda Farr, just to name a few. These people all fought for peace in the galaxy and they were killed. The system was turning against itself. Anakin, on the other hand, spent 3 years fighting in a war, risking his life more than enough times, and nothing came from it. He was the poster boy of the war, and all he did was lose people, and more than that, lose trust in those who mattered most to him. Like what was Obi-Wan thinking when he thought, yeah, Anakin would be cool with me offing myself and coming back 3 days later? What part of Anakin's emotional instability screamed that he'd be singing to the rooftops over such a tragedy? Just thinking about that made Anakin's blood boil. He did stop. His excitement dissipated in the span of a minute. He then looked over to the horizon again. What would happen to Palpatine? Then he reconsidered the thing Padme had just said, about Palpatine sending her to the Malevolence by accident, even though there was a Republic fleet very openly attacking the Malevolence. Because that ship was such a menace, it wasn't like Palpatine wouldn't have been informed. Anakin chalked it up to a mistake momentarily, and then turned back to his energy. He and Padme could finally act like a married couple. They wouldn't have to be surrounded by politics, deceit, and war. It could just be them, the droids, and their kid. Obviously, they'd stop wherever she gave birth, but just the thought of being freed from the chains of their society was more than enough. Within the span of an hour, they got everything together, and had it taken to the landing docks where Padme's vessel was. Anakin completely turned off his communication device. Padme signed a couple of documents, ones that said Jar Jar was in control of her seat in the Senate, effective immediately, and then left. She wouldn't take it back. The only one who could give it back to her was Jar Jar himself. The couple got to Padme's ship and they entered. 3PO had the engines on because he got here with the rest of the luggage and turned the ship on himself. Anakin and Padme walked in and he walked her to the bedroom and helped her get into bed before wishing her a good night. He planned on being up for a little while longer. Anakin walked to the front of the ship and patted 3PO on the shoulder before sitting down next to him and asking him where he planned on taking them. The golden droid looked over with a worried face and asked what he meant. He didn't plan for anywhere to go. Anakin smiled and laughed, telling 3PO he was just joking. They were going anywhere in the galaxy. It was their adventure. He asked 3PO where he wanted to go most in the galaxy, and the droid tilted his head a little bit and spouted out the name Tanu, so that's where they would go. The ship lifted off and Anakin tucked his communication device into a cabinet in the cockpit. He disabled the tracker and completely turned it off. There'd be no in-flight communications. He heard it interfere with takeoffs and landings. Anakin grabbed something else in the cabinet and walked over to the seat and sat down. He watched his little droid pull up the ship and fly into the atmosphere. Wow, 3PO really got the hang of this thing. He sped through and out of the city and out of the atmosphere. As they continued climbing, R2 came in and informed him that the trackers on the ship were also disabled. The little blue and white droid made sure that they wouldn't be getting any communications from anyone either. Anakin leaned back and rested his hand on R2's head as the ship pulled above Coruscant and launched into hyperspace towards Tanu. In Anakin's hand was a little game, one he bought a little while back. It was a pod racing game, and once the trip through hyperspace began, he started his little racing game. It was a little annoying because the controls were wonky and he could do better in person. No, like literally, not like everyone else who played it and said they could. He actually won a pod race in real life. he picked up on the career mode and continued playing the game. Skywalker got lost in the pod racing and looked down at the time till they arrived and realized he'd been playing for a couple hours, so he set it down and went to bed. He actually had been looking for the game. That was like his only entertainment on the front lines. He just forgot he left it with Padme the last time he was here. Anyways, Padme woke up long before he did, and she had a bit of a difficult time with her first day. She was so used to being active and always doing this and that and the other, but nothing. She could totally relax and give herself an actual breather. It was a nightmare being a senator during the time of war, rushing from one end of the Senate building to the other, while being pregnant at the same time wasn't exactly the best feeling in the galaxy physically or emotionally. She could really enjoy the plus side of being pregnant now, because when she wasn't hiding it, she could enjoy not killing herself over her work and give into her cravings without feeling self-conscious around her workmates. It was also so much better, especially because at the very least, Anakin wouldn't judge her. That meant so much more than being around Goldie, because while 3PO was great, having a human presence was so much more than a butler that was a droid. Padme found herself in the living quarters of the ship with some food, some of which she saved for Anakin when he woke up, and set herself up with some reality TV. The housewives of Coruscant were literally insane, but she had something else. Padme preferred the show Below Deck, and she could catch up on it. Essentially, it was a bunch of people her age working on a luxury craft near Canto Bight out on Cantonica. She actually thought that Canto Bight could be a good honeymooning location. It was semi-tropical without all the sand. It was a casino as well. Tons of live shows, magic, music, comedians, you name it. Plus, they actually could be young and live— never mind, they had a child on the way. But they could still do other fun things that didn't involve hitting the slots. Perhaps they could save Canto Bight for later. For the first time in months, Anakin and Padme would actually be able to enjoy each other's company. They both silently thought about the war, but they kept those thoughts internalized. There was no reason to bring them up. Instead, they just resorted to snuggling on the couch and forgetting about the political atmosphere they were so used to. This was literally the life. This logically had an effect on both of them. Neither of them could sit still. They obviously found ways around this, but their thoughts kept putting them back on the past they left behind. Padme struggled with this more because she typically had less free time than Anakin. Aside from the battles and the planning, without Ahsoka, he would usually just work on his starship or whatever, sometimes play a game of sabacc with the boys, but nothing more than that. He just kind of wandered around. So this was great for him. He had choices. Padme was learning how to let herself relax too. Just breathe. She didn't have to save the galaxy all at once. Didn't make anything easier, but they both found things to do that kept them preoccupied. They found shows or movies to prop up. Padme would read books or doomscroll on her tablet. Anakin would doomscroll on his or play the pod racing game. But it was nice. Anakin and Padme would obviously verbally talk to each other, but more than anything, it was nice not having to cram in all their time with each other. So much of their relationship was meeting up, cramming 8 months of talking, love, fights, and normal relationship things into 24 hours. That's firstly unhealthy, and secondly, tiring. So when they didn't have to do that, they could actually just enjoy being around each other. They didn't have to force their feelings out if they were exhausted. This was literally all they wanted, and they spent 3 years playing the part of the romantic soap opera to not get this. There was no more hiding anything, and it felt nice. On Coruscant, Palpatine informed the Jedi of the Utapau thing, and suggested that Anakin be the one to lead the assault. The Jedi then told him that they didn't know where Skywalker went. Palpatine obviously knew something was up when Anakin skipped their date at the opera show, but if the Jedi didn't know where he was, then something was wrong. He did try and give Anakin nightmares about Padme dying, but he literally couldn't figure out where Anakin was. Skywalker was deep into hyperspace by the time this happened, so Palpatine had no clue how to latch onto him. Without someone to rely on, Palpatine course corrected and decided that it'd be best to send another Jedi General away from Coruscant. So with Obi-Wan taking on the Utapau campaign, Mace Windu was dispatched to Pamant, the shipyards where the Malevolence was built. There was a new battle for the system and it required Jedi General interference. Palpatine tried to conjure up a couple other battles, but Shaak Ti, Kit Fisto, Agan Kolar, Saesee Tiin, and Coleman Kaj were the least of his concerns. Anakin and Padme would have another couple days to themselves. These days would be perfect, because on the second day at Tanu, they'd hop over a star system and bring Padme to a Republic military facility, one where they were prepared to handle a pregnancy. Considering news from Coruscant wasn't huge down this far in the Outer Rim, No one knew they weren't Jedi General or Senate anymore, so they helped him out free of charge. The news would eventually get to them, but not within the span of time that they were there. The greatest surprise for Padme and Anakin was having twins. Luckily, they were ironically prepared for this. The night of Anakin finding out of the pregnancy, they came up with the names for the child. Padme didn't want to know if it was a boy or a girl without Anakin being around, and Anakin figured, why find out when they can just wait a couple days until the child was born? So they decided on a name or two for the circumstances of having either or. Anakin thought Leia would be perfect for the girl, and Padme loved Luke for the boy. Really simple names, but they mirrored each other perfectly. Both start with L, both have 4 letters. Perfect combination. The twins were named with the names they had prepared, and they got some extra supplies before going off. Padme did have a couple things set up for a baby, but not 2. So they had to reorganize and get a second crib and everything for the other twin. Anakin and Padme had the joy of putting together a spakia. How could they not love every moment of this? They were being a couple together openly without having to hide it. Did I mention it wasn't being hidden? However, not all good things can last, because after putting together their other crib and supplies, they went to sleep. Anakin, about 3 hours into his rest, would be woken from his sleep to a terrible feeling in his chest, as if thousands of voices cried out in terror and were all silenced at once. When he woke up, he didn't wake Padme. She was exhausted from the day as it was. Anakin felt his chest heave and wondered what could have happened. Not like the Separatists could have won. Sure, Grievous was on the loose, but still, they couldn't win the war. Anakin simply chose to go back to bed, and he let his heart rate slow itself down. Being with his wife did that, and he was able to eventually get his rest and sleep it off. The following day went as all the previous days. Nothing too major. They woke up, ate, turned on the reality TV, and went to their devices. The children were with them in the living quarters, but thanks to R2 and 3PO, it was very, very easy to make sure they had the kids taken care of all the time. Not that they passed the tasks onto the droids or anything. As the TV was playing background noise, an alert came through, throwing up a projector, one showing Palpatine as he dethroned the Republic government and crowned himself as Emperor of the Galactic Empire. He talked about the attempt on his life. Apparently, the aforementioned Jedi on Coruscant tried to kill him, and they all died in the process. Order 66 was executed, and every Jedi was to be hunted down and defeated. Palpatine's resolve had never been stronger. Padme and Anakin looked to each other, and despite everything they had done, they couldn't let Palpatine's actions plague them. Initially, they both wanted to blame themselves for it, but they refused. It was hard, but they couldn't. It was out of their control now. They felt bad, they really did. Anakin saw where Padme and the Jedi were coming from, and Padme realized the truth she didn't want to accept. Palpatine was corrupt, and he was using all of them as pawns in his game to get rid of the Jedi and claim the throne for himself. The thought of Palpatine being a Sith never crossed Anakin's mind, so he let it be. Anakin and Padme both considered going to their communication frequencies and seeing who survived, but they decided against it. It took everything for Anakin to not do it, because he was really worried about Obi-Wan and Ahsoka. But he had to trust what Master Plo said. If she was trained well, she would survive, and find her way to him eventually. Plus, she wasn't a Jedi, so no harm, no foul. She'd be alright. Rex and the boys wouldn't ever hurt her anyways. Obi-Wan was fine too. Master of Defense, he'd survive. Anakin, of course, was pushing these thoughts to the front of his mind because it was entirely possible that they could have died. The two of them were almost in horror, but they came back to each other. They calmed everything down, and they made a plan. The best part is, ever since they actually started listening to each other, they were actually pretty on par with everything. They agreed that they could live a quiet life on the run, avoid people, avoid the Empire, and live off the grid until the storm passed. There did remain the question for them. Would they have been affected by the execution of Order 66? Surely Anakin would have been in trouble, but what about Padme? Would she and the other senators become targets for Palpatine's new regime? Anakin asked Padme where she would like to go, and she thought that a good place to lay low would be Arnak. It was a system close to Naboo, but it was off the grid. They could literally land their ship, set up a little camp, and live off the land for little. It'd be a nice little place for them. Plus, if they needed her family, they could bring them extra supplies, because it was just a system away from Naboo. It'd be the perfect safe haven for them for the time being. Anakin was totally in line with this, and 3PO set the coordinates for the planet. When they arrived, they landed down inside of a dense jungle to stay under cover. 3PO made sure to inform them of all the potential threats on the planet, but the sentries on the ship were deployed to protect against animals. These sentries weren't heavy weaponry, simply just little defense mechanisms against anything that wandered too close. Anakin investigated the area around the landing zone and deduced that they were safe here. The two of them continued taking care of their children for the longer part of a month. They tried to avoid watching any of the news, and they stuck to their reality TV shows, with the additional trivia game show to keep things lively. There was one missing ingredient to their married life at this point, and it was simply the fact that they had no one else to share their happiness with. They were very content with each other and their children. Without the secrecy, they actually had a very healthy relationship, kinda. They still had a couple things to work on, but overall, life on Anak was simply peaceful. Anakin and Padme were able to recapture the feelings they felt on Naboo, and fall in love with each other all over again. But no matter what they did with each other, they both had the burning sensation to fight the Empire. Anakin had to come to the conclusion that the Jedi were right, and he should have trusted their intuition. He was bummed out about the whole Palpatine lying to him his entire life thing, and that did fuel a rage within him, because he did want to make Palpatine pay, but he refused to leave his wife to do that. The Jedi failed. Palpatine was alive for 60-some years before he was born. That wasn't his mistake, it was theirs. He used that logic in helping Padme too. She was 25 years old. How could she fix something that she wasn't in the room for? Valorum was corrupt, and that happened when she was 14. How could she fairly put the galaxy on her back? Anakin's disdain for politicians became very apparent, especially because of Palpatine's rise to Emperor. But he was right. She was one politician, and one good one didn't make the other hundreds any better. For every politician that actually served their people, there were 5 more that did wrong by their constituents. She did admit that she joined the Senate to help the people, and he understood, but she was overshadowed by something larger than the Jedi, the Republic, and even the Clone Wars. If Palpatine was indeed a Sith, that was a plan in the making for thousands of years. The burden falls onto Yoda's shoulders, and that of the Council too. Without someone to outright betray the Order, it was the fault of the Jedi for not stepping up to the plate and dealing with their ancient rival. Now the Jedi were seemingly scattered amongst the stars. It was just better to have each other. Anakin then promised his wife that he wouldn't ever let the Empire take their children away from them. Despite having no readers, Anakin knew that the twins were Force sensitive. As they were living their peaceful life here, one night Anakin was awoken by breaking branches in the distance. He rose from his sleep and rushed to the door. These breaking branches weren't all that auditory from the vessel, more so echoes to the Force that he felt. He told R2 to protect the ship, and he ran out, closing the gate behind him. Anakin kept to the low ground, and searched through the night with an infrared reader that he picked up at the clone base where Luke and Leia were born. He scanned the area and found a bundle of clones hunting him. He couldn't believe it. Skywalker moved through the brush, avoiding them before igniting his lightsaber into their direction and demanding to know what they were doing out here. He shocked the clones, all of them panicking before Commander Wolffe asked why he was out here. Anakin said he could ask that same question to him. The clone commander told the former Jedi that he didn't mean to come out here to find him. Despite Order 66 still being in effect, Anakin wasn't a Jedi. It was military knowledge before Order 66 happened, so Wolffe knew that Skywalker wasn't a target. Anakin asked Wolffe what his orders were, and he told him that there were a couple Jedi Masters out here plotting. Anakin knew about the coup of the Council, but he didn't speak of it. He simply asked Wolffe if there had been Padawans, would he have shot them? The clone commander removed his helmet and turned to his boys, telling them to go at ease. He shook his head, apologizing for the disruption. Skywalker told him to rethink the orders he was given. It seems as if everything was upside down since the end of the war. Wolffe asked Skywalker why he was being hunted, and Anakin didn't know, but he wished Wolffe a farewell before rushing back to the ship, hopping into it, turning on the engines, and blasting out of the forest. Wolffe was confused about the entire interaction, so he told the boys that there was nothing to report, just a confused civilian. It was the truth, technically. None of his men would betray him for that. Padme was rudely awoken by not just sobbing children, but the recoil from being lifted into the air at such speeds, and launched into hyperspace. Surely that wouldn't be the best thing for the reactor, but it was a sturdy ship. She'd be alright. Anakin ran back once they were in hyperspace and picked up Luke and Leia and apologized to Padme for the ruckus. She asked what was happening, and he said that the Empire found them. He didn't know how or why, but they were looking for them. They would still be on the run. They just had to be as careful as humanly possible. The Empire wouldn't stop at anything, and they had an entire galaxy worth of resources to find them with. Anakin didn't know what to do. He hadn't been training since they left, and Palpatine was still elusive. Who knew which Jedi were still alive anyways? Hopefully someone could deal with this, because this singular moment confirmed to Anakin that he wouldn't go anywhere without Padme. If he was out in the galaxy looking for revenge, they could have been captured and killed without him. He wouldn't let what happened to his mom happened to his wife and children. Anakin became very on edge and very paranoid, but Padme reassured him they'd find a way to survive this. They would make it through the storm, as they had with everything else in their lives. He appreciated her warmness, and she was right. They would make it through this together. About a month after running into Wolf, they'd spend some time on a farming world in the Outer Rim, a world where they would run into Ahsoka once again. It was so incredible to see her. She had survived. Things had been rough for her. She did run into Obi-Wan once too. Bail Organa was connecting Jedi with each other. Turns out Yoda, Obi-Wan, and Windu were all survivors. They were saving as many Jedi as they could and sending them to Ahch-To before making their move on the Emperor. But that was about a month before. Ahsoka didn't know if they succeeded or if they ever got to Coruscant alive. Anakin and Padme felt terrible for Ahsoka and asked if she would like to come along with them, and she accepted. She hadn't been here long, and she ran into Kenobi before that. Ahsoka did tell Anakin that Obi-Wan was beyond worried about him, and Padme. She said that he knew the truth. He just hoped that they had a happy life together. This warmed Anakin's heart. The fact that Obi-Wan knew the truth but kept it a secret was such a wholesome thing for him to do. Regardless, Ahsoka joined the twins, Anakin, Padme, and the droids inside the luxury-class starship and left. Thanks to Satine, there were a number of neutral systems that were untouched by the Empire, and the three would stay the course to avoid running into it. All three of them had allies, and they finally used their communications to speak to those allies. Kenobi left Anakin hundreds of messages, many of them just wishing and hoping that he was safe. There was never an ounce of anger or even annoyance for Anakin. Obi-Wan always understood why it was done. But then the Empire rose, and all Obi-Wan was worried about was Anakin's safety. He knew the Emperor would be interested in finding him. Ahsoka told Anakin and Padme about her Order 66 experience, and everything she and Rex had to do to survive it. The tale was harrowing and horrific. Jesse and all those troopers were controlled and they died for nothing. This made Anakin's blood boil more, but he still would not leave. Not even with Ahsoka here. There was nothing that would pull him away from them until the Emperor was dealt with. Luckily for him, he wouldn't ever have to deal with it. Unluckily, the Empire would crack down even heavier on Force sensitives as a result. The three masters made a move on Sidious, and they found him. He acquired two servants, Grand Inquisitor and First Sister, otherwise known as Barriss Offee. The three Jedi dismantled the Inquisitors, and then they fought the Emperor. His reinforcements assisted him. With hundreds of troopers, the three Jedi had to fight not just the Sith Lord, but their former men. It was a struggle, but in the end, Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Windu were able to prevail. The Jedi were branded as the cause of this evil in the galaxy, and they had to be done away with. Even luckier for them, their council members, the only three surviving, brought the Jedi to a safe haven, but there weren't many. Even without Skywalker, the attack on the temple was blindsiding, and there were less than 200 survivors galaxy-wide. The temple island on Ahch-To was full of Jedi, but they were the remnant of their order. Kenobi, after the fight with Sidious, would scour the galaxy looking for Anakin, trying to bring him to Ahch-To so that he and his family could be protected. Even better, it wouldn't take long. Ahsoka and Obi-Wan had a mutual contact in Bail Organa, who put them in touch with each other. Padme did feel terrible about leaving her allies in the Senate, but rumor had it that Jar Jar did a fine job in her place. He simply was told what to do, and he did it, which helped out with Bail's political motions in the Senate. The Empire would crumble in on itself without a backbone of Palpatine. He introduced huge military budget increases, and without his guidance, it led to a clone rebellion, one in which the clones were able to get the recognition and the payments they deserved. Though this didn't fix anything politically, the Empire was financially in debt, with a war that no one wanted, started by two people that were now dead, and they had to pay for an army that still wasn't paid for. Honestly, Padme was glad she ran away. Plus, her twins would be able to grow up with other kids, like Grogu, who was like the only infant to survive the Order. Anakin and the surviving council members would have a difficult talk, but they now all seen the full picture, understood him better. Did they agree with it? No, not at all. But they at the very least understood why he acted in the way he did. They therefore extended an olive branch, offering Anakin and Padme refuge here on Ahch-To. Luke and Leia could be trained, but they wouldn't be forced to follow the Jedi Code. Obi-Wan spoke up saying that in their time on Ahch-To, they would likely loosen their own code so that they could begin the rebuilding process. But the main consensus is, there is no reason for them to be sent away. This place could be safe for all of them. Anakin and Padme did accept, but they could still return to Naboo whenever they wanted, which would be something they would do frequently. The Empire wouldn't recover quickly, but by the time the twins reached adulthood, they would at the very least have a functional system of government. The Jedi would recover, but their order needed the voice of a new generation. The twins would never become Jedi, but would be very close with their Jedi brothers and sisters. As for the married couple, Anakin and Padme would be able to facilitate a happy and healthy married life, one that didn't include any other kids, any more wars, and no more Sith. And that, my friends, is a wholesome story right there. Again, special thanks to all the patrons: Benjamin Wells, Django Fat Clone, Ben Ingram, The Big Red Pure Mark, Diamond Constant, Darth Nemesis, Lord Tibbs, CC2024, Galava Gaming, Tristan, Mandalore, Sir Willem 1767, Darth Revan, Grandy Bane, Laliant, Sky Guy, Penguin, Cullen Rooney, Shark Midori, RJ38, Nick, Michael Erlanger, The Last Jedi, Apollo Weewu 67, Annika Stank Runner, CT7567, Toaster Oven, Oz of Oz, Darth Nox, The Eternal Padawan, Joshua Tam, Johnny DeGuin, Sansa Skeleton, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Lord Callie, Youngly Slayer 66, Madman Studios, Anakin 003, Lord Draken, Fortis Legacy Star Wars, Erebus, Rex the Wolf, the main three first names, Darkseid 46, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing. For supporting the channel, smash that like button, support me out of the way, go check out other things. Special thanks to N-Saber for sponsoring our 125,000 subscriber lightsaber giveaway. If you want to find out how you can win one of 6 lightsabers, check the pinned comment down below. Let's talk about this story. When I got into this, I initially had some other ideas of how I wanted it to end, but as I was writing it, I realized that Anakin wouldn't ever want to leave Padme in this situation. I don't see him like a blind puppy dog kind of following Padme wherever she goes. I see him more of being overprotective and being that he doesn't want to leave Padme because he's so paranoid that something would happen to her, and that seeing the clones in the Force would reinforce those ideas. But I also wanted to focus on like a more wholesome side of the relationship, because they wouldn't be involved in the war. They could actually have that relationship that you see in Attack of the Clones. And so I wanted to expand upon what you see there as a foundation. So I hope you all enjoyed. More wholesome, not as much actiony, but felt like it kind of fit the vibe for them, kind of escaping and living their own life. So I hope you all enjoyed. I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.